Are you here? You are indeed, and thank you for tuning in to the Paul Leslie Hour. Will Kimbrough returns for his second interview with Paul. Will Kimbrough is a respected and beloved singer-songwriter, performing and recording artist, and record producer. Now, Will Kimbrough, gifted songwriter that he is, co-wrote 5 songs on Equal Strain on All Parts, the final posthumous album of legendary singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett. Will joins us to talk about that and more. Hey, real quick, you must subscribe to the Paul Leslie YouTube channel. Gotta do it. We've got so much more content like this a-coming, and maybe you'd like to treat Paul to a hot or a cold beverage. Sure, why not? Just visit thepaulleslie.com/support. Thanks. And with that, I must admit, these words I say about this time. Let's listen together.
Hello.
Hey, Will Kimbrough. How are you, sir?
How are you, Paul? I'm good.
I'm doing good.
Are
From
you in
where?
Atlanta?
I was in Atlanta. I'm in Charleston right now.
Okay.
Charleston, Tennessee. And where are you joining us from today?
I'm at home in Nashville.
Okay. Well, Will, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us.
Yeah, man. Yes, indeed.
Well, you are joining us on November 3rd, 2023. And this just so happens to be the release day for the final posthumous album of Jimmy Buffett.
Yep.
And you have 5 co-writes on that album.
Yep.
How does a day like today feel for you?
Well, I had to get my gear together and go to a rehearsal. So, I mean, it's I mean, it's bittersweet, you know. I mean, I wrote, made 7 records with Jimmy, and we worked on a little over 20 songs together for those albums, and we won't get to do it anymore.
Right.
But getting to do it was a great joy. So it is literally bittersweet, but I'd say it's sweet bitter. It's more sweet than it is bitter. But you make friends with somebody and you work with them, and then they're gone, and then you just carry them with you where you go.
The last time we talked, which I'm realizing now, was 17 years ago.
Wow.
You're still at it.
Yeah.
We talked a little.
What else am I going to do?
Exactly. We brushed on it a little bit the first time, but what would you say the influence Mobile, Alabama has had on you?
Well, massive.
Mm-hmm.
I was born there. I grew up there. When you grow up in Mobile, you're smack dab between Florida beaches and New Orleans.
Yeah.
And you're south of everywhere except for South Florida in America. You know, you walk a few feet south and your feet are in the water.
Right.
You walk a few feet north and your feet are in the water. You walk east or west and your feet are in the water. There's great music from there. There's great music being made there now. There's great food. There's literary people, and there were when I was growing up. And so it's a great gift to be from there and get to know those people, get to know the music people and the book people and the food people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was growing up, there was still French speakers down on Montlouis Island and places like that. So it's an old Deep South Spanish French kind of place, and then it's also a weird Deep South place in Alabama.
Yeah.
So I love, it's everything. It's everything. I was born there,
It's a place maybe not everybody's been to, but I definitely recommend going and checking it out.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something. You said just to the west there is New Orleans. Can you tell us about
Right.
your early recollections, your early connections to New Orleans?
Yeah, my mother's best friend from college settled in Slidell, and which is right across the lake from New Orleans, and right across Lake Pontchartrain. And so I was friends with uh, my mom's friends' kids, and I would go stay in Slidell for a couple of weeks every summer. And so every day you'd go, I mean, to go get milk at the grocery store, we'd pop across the bridge and go to Schwegmann's on the Chef Mentor Highway. And then also my mom's friend, her name is Sarah Ann, and her business was a interior decorating business. So she'd also pop over to Royal Street in the Quarter and look at antiques for her clients. And so, and also I grew up in Mobile, so it was literally 2 hours from my parents' door to be in the city of New Orleans. So we went all the time. My sister lived there in the early '80s, and so I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans. I've never lived there. You know, by the time I was ready to move somewhere, it would have just been a cultural choice and less of like a music career choice to live
Hmm.
there, to be honest. Because in the early '80s, mid '80s, New Orleans was it's a great place to go, but there wasn't anything really happening there except for Jazz Fest and just local gigs. And I'm not from there, so it's different. You know, you can move there and try to get started and make yourself a New Orleanian, and there's plenty of people who have.
Hmm.
You know, there's a couple of good artists who are from Sweden who have made Anders Osborne um and his ex-wife, fiddle player. But they're New Orleans musicians now. They've been there a long time, uh, but I spent a lot of time there. So yeah, I mean, my dad's favorite place to eat was Mandina's, which is in the mid city on uh, Canal Street, and so yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans. I've never lived there. I'd love to I'd love to be able to say I lived there at one point, but it's probably not going to happen now. But
Well, the
because I'm doing what I do, which is when you play music for a living, you're going to be traveling.
right.
And I'm in a great place to do that, which is Nashville, which is a musician city, a songwriter city, and a central city to the United States and North America in general, and the Western Hemisphere. And there's an pretty easy to access airport, So,
Hmm. You
but I
can
was
be
in New
anywhere.
Orleans a couple of weeks ago, and then I got something to eat.
Yeah. Uh, well,
Yeah,
speaking of something to eat, the opening track of this Buffett record,
yeah,
the University of Bourbon Street, you got so many references in there. The Neville
yeah.
Brothers, Po' Boys, Muffalettas. I mean,
Hmm.
was that a joyous song to write?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, the way Jimmy and I wrote in the last 4 years was remotely, but we had so much in common that he could just drop references and I would get a song started. And that was really how we wrote. He would send me an idea, and I knew the references. So not every reference, but we had enough in common just for him to go, "Hey, what about this? Maybe you can get something started." In the last 4 years, I've got to go get treated in Boston. I got to go get treated in Houston, and then I got to be and then I'm going to live my life as Jimmy Buffett, the airplane flying uh, mega entrepreneur guy.
Hmm.
So who would also spend his winters in somewhere warm with water. So he would be somewhere far away. But there was trust. There was trust that I would take care with his idea and send it to him, and then let him do whatever he wanted with it, and he'd send it back to me, and we'd go back and forth. So that's literally what we did with all five of these songs, and also the songs that we worked on for the last record for Life on the Flip Side.
Right.
So those records were all done remotely like that. Not the records, but the writing, because this was all fell under the time in which he was receiving treatment for his illness.
Hmm.
And although he always had plenty of energy, but he had to go do it. He had to go be in either Houston or Boston. And so he'd say, "I'm ready to write. Why don't you run with this?" And so, yeah, the references were flying. The rough drafts of that song have just endless verses of stuff, you know.
Hmm.
So it was fun, and but also we rewrote the entire lyric in the studio.
Hmm.
So I mean, we didn't change every line, but we recorded the track, which is the whole track excluding the Preservation Hall band, and so everything else that's on there is on there. And then Jimmy decided he wanted to rewrite the lyrics, and so we sat down in a little room in the studio and spent about an hour and just rewrote the lyrics.
Hmm.
And so,
Interesting.
but the song was written, so you know it was just making changes. Yeah, but you know that happens. I mean, the way a song is written could be anyway. You could write it in the studio. You could write the lyrics in the vocal booth. You could make them up while you sing them. You could write them 10 years before and spend, you know, day after day editing, you know. It really could be anything. And in this case, the basic format of the song was something that I made up at my house, sitting on the couch like this, you know, sent it to Jimmy, and then he started changing lyrics, and then we got a form that we liked, and then he wanted to change the lyrics in the studio, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm, collaborator with him for his record, so whatever he wants to try, I'm willing to go with him.
Was it especially a kick to hear the Preservation Hall Jazz Band on that track?
Absolutely, I had just gone to see him at the Skirmerhorn Symphony Center here. Uh, and then about a week later, my mom and my daughter and I went to see the Preservation Hall band, and we got to sit behind them in the choir seats and look down behind the drummer. And my mother was, saying, "Oh, I love being behind the drummer, watching what the drummer does from the drummer's point of view." And then a couple of days later, Mac McAnally sent me a rough mix of the Preservation Hall band on there. So yeah, I was absolutely thrilled. Not only with the concept of it, just being able to say it. I wrote a song with Jimmy Buffett. Preservation Hall band's on it. I'm also playing on it. There are moments where I'm playing a little lick, and then they answer me, and so it's pretty great.
Yeah, very cool.
Dream come true.
Huh. And, as a vocalist yourself, I would be curious to know your take on this. Jimmy Buffett was someone who was always in interviews and whatnot, self-deprecating about his vocals. But then
Yeah,
you listen to certain tracks like Stars Fell on Alabama, doing a song that Sinatra recorded. And
right.
I played that song for a real serious Sinatra historian. And he said, "Who is this? This is an
Hmm.
amazing vocal." And I said, "You'll never guess." It's Jimmy
Yeah.
Buffett. What did you think of the vocalist Jimmy Buffett?
Well, he's in that category of singers that are that aren't technically, they're not choir singers, right? They're not opera singers. They're not Broadway singers. They're not pretty singers necessarily, but and those include Jimmy, Bob Dylan, Nina Simone, Johnny Cash, Jimi Hendrix, Leonard Cohen, Hazel Dickens, all kind of people who have sort of a maybe even Loretta Lynn. There's a homeliness to it,
Hmm.
and homeliness is usually associated with being not pretty. But if you think about the word, it also it makes you feel like you're at home.
Mhm.
When Johnny Cash sings, everybody in the world knows who Johnny Cash is. It's like Muhammad Ali or something, or whatever. So I think Jimmy's like that too. It's like somebody singing to you, and you feel like you know them, and you also feel like they know you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's and that doesn't mean that they're not good singers. In fact, all those people I just mentioned, by anybody's standard, are great singers. They're just not pretty, pretty, pretty singers. That's not the point of their music. Their
Hmm.
point of particularly in different ways, but still, you know, Randy Newman's another one, you know. And I said Nina Simone, people think of her as a great jazz singer, but she flirted with being out of tune her whole life. That was her voice, but there's something about that makes it all the more powerful. That so And I think Buffett's in a different way. There's like this guy that you know and knows you, your buddies up there singing. And it could be just something fun and almost spoken, why don't we get drunk and screw, or him when he would do the Lord Buckley kind of stuff, or songs that he really loved, old fashioned songs, Stars Fell in Alabama, he went to Paris, Death of an Unpopular Poet, all those kind of songs. Well, there's this other side too, where that it's a heartfelt thing,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, so he's a great singer. He's one of the great singers. Uh, that doesn't have anything to do with whether how pretty you sing. It's that you're a great singer, and he's one of them.
This question comes from Brent Jones. He says that he saw you performing in Alabama just recently. He asks, what was it like performing Bubbles Up in front of an emotional crowd in Gulf Shores?
Oh, well, it was very emotional. People started blowing bubbles as soon as I started playing it, and there was something about that was extremely poignant. And I mean, I don't have to explain that, you know. I was with a bunch of people who loved the guy, and I'm a guy who loved the guy, and I'm playing a song that we wrote from a very heartfelt place. Um, and then people are out there in the sunshine, the Gulf of Mexico, glistening in the sun, blowing bubbles. It was very moving, and it felt like. And I think sometimes people ask you as a performer, how can you get through a song without, you know, stopping and breaking into tears? Well, it's just part of the performer. You're you're in a different place when you're performing. So, but it was still very moving. I mean, I had at the beginning of the first bubbles flew over me, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be emotional, and it was.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful song. Absolutely.
thank you. Another one. That's another one that that we wrote the same way. I think I came up with the form of Bubbles Up, University of Bourbon Street in the same sitting,
Hmm.
and sent them off to Jimmy because he just gave me these ideas, and I just went with my gut, and he liked it, so that was good.
I'm always in awe of songs that take something that maybe would just seemingly be a everyday, like a bubbles,
Hmm.
a blue sky, and
Yeah,
turns it into something profound even.
yeah.
And this one does.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, and just for someone, I've talked about this, but I'll say it again, and I'll never forget it. That to have that trust of somebody like him, somebody who wrote, A Pirate Looks at 40, and who sang "Stars Fell in Alabama" the way that he did, and also just who entertained millions of people for 50 years. To have that trust of him to just run with his idea and then send it to him later on a phone recording, and have him just be perfectly happy with that relationship, just showed how open he was to how are we going to get the song done. We're not, he wasn't going to say, oh, too bad we can't get together, I guess we can't write. He was like, hey, would you mind writing this way? And I was like, sure. So that trust is holy to me.
Hmm.
It's very moving to think about it, that I was trusted by this guy, and we trusted each other, and there was never any like, oh, I better not send him my idea, he might mess it up, from either
Hmm.
end. Because think about that. I mean, he was sending me his ideas, and this new record comes out. The first two songs on the record are songs I sat downstairs from here one day over Christmas and recorded them on my phone and sent it to him. He liked them. They're the first two songs on his record.
Hmm.
So it's amazing. Yeah.
There's a very jubilant song, and it's got I guess you'd say Afro Caribbean beat to it. I'm talking about
Mhm.
the Tea Punch Cafe, which is just
Yeah,
joyous.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you had a song like that? And, by the way, it has Angelique Kidjo on it, which is just
I
magical.
know. Right. I can't believe that those that voice is singing some words that I had something to do with. And it's so Jimmy and I both love Caribbean music, from calypso to reggae to, whatever you want to call all the different kinds of music. Um, Ska, reggae, calypso, blue beat, whatever, lovers rock, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And then also the African music, particularly as it turns out, the sort of West African guitar music. We bonded over Tenari one years and years ago. There's a song, the title track of the record Buffet Hotel
Hmm.
is, I get to play slide guitar and banjo with Tumani Diabate's kora harp, with Cedric Burnside playing North Mississippi drums, and Lightning Malcolm playing North Mississippi guitar, and it's all put on there together. Um, but Jimmy Buffett wasn't known to the masses as a musicologist, so there wasn't a lot of attention paid to that. But so that love and that sort of collaboration idea had started. I'll tell you this, because I worked with Buffett, I got to be on records with Bill Withers, Paul McCartney, the Preservation Hall Band, Angelique Kidjo, um, Mark Knopfler. It just goes on and on, and it, because he was, sure, he wanted, anybody would want McCartney on their record, but he also, all the people that he put on there were people that he was either a fan of them, or he became their friend, or both.
Mm.
And so when I went over to Mac McAnally's place with my banjo and I borrowed Mac's Stratocaster to play slide, and I went over and played harmonica on Wings, the song we wrote, and then I played on Buffet Hotel, which is this, it's the story really of when Jimmy and Chris Blackwell and Bill Flanagan went to Africa to try to meet the members of the Rail Band, who are a legendary African, I don't know if it's High Life. I think it's a High Life band. And they tried to get the Rail Band back together, and they ended up doing it through this whole convoluted story. So that's what that song is about. And so I got to collaborate with an African music legend who made records with Ali Farka Toure, and also with North Mississippi blues people. And for whatever reason, I got to go in there and do that stuff. But I think that Jimmy and Mac both knew that I was a fan of that music. I won't say that I understood it.
Hmm.
I understood it enough to play along and trade off licks on the slide and the banjo with the kora and the North Mississippi blues, because I'm a music fan, and I think that's what makes you like a session player or something like that, is that you learn enough of all the styles to sort of be able to go, yeah, okay, let's play, North African groove in E minor, or whatever. It's fun. I can't believe I got just saying that's going, wow, I actually did that stuff. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, but to be playing on a song with Angelique Kidjo singing is huge. I've seen her perform, and she's a just mind-blowingly amazing artist.
it's quite a magical track, I think.
Yeah, it's got
And
so much energy. Yeah.
yeah, it does. It's soothing and at the same time
Hmm.
energetic.
Yeah.
The kind of world music vibe continues though in the Portugal or PEI song.
Right.
And did you know Lenny Gallant previously?
I knew of his music, but I didn't know him, and so there was another song where Jimmy said, "Run with this," and so I took his ideas that he sent me. He sent me some snippets of lyrics and just, handwritten kind of ideas about what the song is about. And then I just started sort of educating myself on Prince Edward Island, and educating myself on Portugal, and trying to educate myself a little bit about, like, uh, kind of fado kind of music. But that's fado really is not one style. It's just a tradition of song in Portugal, because there's a lot of different kind of music called fado. And so I ended up picking up, I have an 8-string tenor ukulele, and I came up with the little lick that starts the whole song, and it turned into the chord progression. And Jimmy had said, I guess I was born with the nomad gene. There's very little of the planet that I haven't seen. So I just started with that and ran with it. And in the end, at the end, the part that says, "Till then I'll be in the conga line, where am I going to go?" That was like this whole part I did on my original demo for Jimmy. And it got all changed. That song went through all kind of, uh, and then Jimmy sent it to Lenny, and Lenny sent stuff back. And so it got, and then Mac wrote the chorus. And and then they put back in later that life is always better when you add a little island. That part was something that I made up at home, and it's pretty amazing that collaboration, because it's literally kind of a global where we all were in the world at the time. And then I was playing my tenor, I mean my 8-string ukulele, just because that was the closest thing I could get to some sort of Portuguese nylon string instrument that I had at my disposal. So that was a real fun collaboration. It just went on and on and on, and Jimmy kept, adding other people to the email chain. I was like, "Who's Lenny?" And I was like, "Oh, Lenny Gallant." And I looked, and I was like, "He's a Canadian. Yeah, he's a Prince Edward Island. He's a folk singer." And so I looked him up, and then he started writing lyrics for the song. It was great. Yeah, just, I mean, that's a part of the bitter part of the bittersweet release day today, is that I won't get to do that again with Jimmy. I hope I keep that spirit in myself and carry it on for the rest of my life. That open spirit, and like, hey, let's get so and so involved, you know.
Hmm.
Because in the end, the Tea Punch Cafe is also co-written with Angelique Kidjo. She's one of the writers now, so it's like I've co-written, I've collaborated with her. I've collaborated with, Lenny. I've collaborated with Tumani Diabate and the Preservation Hall Band, and all because of Jimmy Buffett. I mean, I would have said yes to any of those people anyway, but because of Jimmy, it actually happened. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of person he was, open-minded, and the open spirit, open heart.
What you're saying reminds me of a Lenny Gallant lyric that I always thought was just, I don't know, it always stuck with me. These doors and windows open wide. Just the possibilities.
Yeah, the possibilities. That's a good point.
Huh.
So so Jimmy was ambitious. These songs are T Punch and PEI Portugal are and really ambitious songs, and so was University of Bourbon Street. I'm going to write the story of my life in a 3.5-minute song. The story of my young life, like a novel about my young life in New Orleans, and I'm going to let this guy that I know, who I think knows a little bit about this kind of music, run with it, and then we'll finish it up. And so that, yeah, the possibilities, instead of being apprehensive about what someone else might do with your idea, he was interested in the possibilities
Hmm. Hmm.
of opening that door and saying, yeah, and open this window over there,
Yeah.
and then we'll let the breeze in, and let the rain in, and then we'll write it all down, and we'll see what happens. And then I know these people from Africa, they're going to sing on it. It's going to be, it's going to have a lot of energy.
I want everybody out there to go to willkimbrough.com. There's a song on there, When This Is All Over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great song, a short song. Have you changed the way you approach loss as you've grown older?
Well, I still have so much to lose, so I have so much to learn.
Hmm.
But and I mean that in a grateful way. I know when I lost my father, I had a certain way of dealing with that, and that was a long, drawn out illness, over years. So that was a whole different thing. But yeah, I think so. But we have to change the way we deal with loss the older we get, because we experience so much more.
Yeah.
As we get older, there's just, it starts to just ramp up, you start losing all your heroes, you start losing all your friends, and you start losing all your family. And so it hasn't really kicked in hard for me yet. But I did lose my dad, but he had a great life. So hey, celebrate that. Similar uh, to Jimmy, Jimmy and my dad got sick at the same age, in their mid 70s kind of thing. So note to self, do the things you want to do.
Yeah, no kidding. Has there been anything about your life that has surprised you? I know you have told us about all these, you know, being able to work with international stars and appearing
Yeah,
on an album that Paul McCartney also appeared on. That's a big thing. you know,
yeah.
anything else?
Well, just that I got to. One thing is that I got to that my roads cross paths with Buffett at all. Is very. It was as likely as it might seem, just because we're from the same kind of area of the world and we both were singer-songwriters. But the fact that I uh, decided I would go play guitar for Todd Snyder is really how that happened. And so that night at Tipitina's in New Orleans, and I found myself standing backstage in a crowded room, Jimmy Buffett right next to me, and I decided to say, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm Will. I'm Will Kimbrough from Mobile, Alabama." And he said, "Oh, you're just another escapee." And I said, "Right." And then so there's a lot of surprise. I mean, I'm sitting here in my nice house in Nashville with more work than I know what to do with. And I say work, I mean musical work, creative work, and that's one of the things that I would do as a hobby. I would do for fun anyway if it weren't my profession. So that's a daily surprise that I'm still getting away with it. I'm still getting away with being an escapee from Lower Alabama who um which didn't mean that anything wrong with Lower Alabama. It just means, I left to pursue my dream, and here I am living it. So it's a surprise every day that I still get to do it. And I've got a beautiful family and more friends than I have time to see. And a crazy dog over here. And so, yeah, lots of surprises. I mean, I'm surprised at what I'm surprised about, but um, as you live your life and get a little older, you can look back and appreciate a lot of the things that maybe when you were a kid you thought were sort of like disappointments. I mean, now you look at them as lessons
Hmm.
and also experiences that who gets to have all the experiences that I've had in my little rock and roll band, going to New York all the time and trying to get record deals and finally getting a record deal, and it turned out to be a big disappointment. But hey, who gets to have a major label record deal? Very, very few people in the grand scheme of things, and get to go to Bearsville and meet Rick Danko and meet all the people in Woodstock and meet Sally Grossman, who's the was on the cover of Bob Dylan's Bringing It All Back Home, and she's sending over champagne to our table on my 25th birthday. And now, who cares if my little rock band made it or not? I'm here sitting here, talking to you about a record that came out today with somebody that millions of people kind of idolize, and so I get to be part of something bigger than me. But the main thing is I get to just do music, and I get asked to be creative like on a daily basis, and I like that. Like it's no longer, it doesn't feel like pressure anymore to me. It feels like an opportunity, a
Hmm.
possibility, as you said, the life of possibility. So I'm surprised every day, and I'm grateful.
Well, what does Jimmy Buffett mean to you?
He means a mentor and a teacher and a partner and a friend who reached out to me to help him find a creative spark. He also knew very well how much it helped me
Hmm.
to be involved with him, and so I think it was very loving of him to reach out to me 7 records in a row for a 20-year period. I also know that he felt like I would always jump at the chance and help him light his creative fire. And I wasn't afraid to go full on, Afro-Caribbean, or write a happy song in a minor key like PEI Portugal. It's in a minor key, but a lot of world music that's very joyful has a minor sound. And so I didn't have very much of that sort of Nashville uh, uh, Music Row writer who'd be like, well, now that sounds like a minor chord. We better not put that in there. I think for him, he was to me a mentor and a teacher and a partner and a friend, and that's a good thing to have.
Absolutely. Well, everybody out there, it's willkimbrough.com, KIMBROUGH, right?
Yes, sir.
willkimbrough.com. And Will, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, Paul.
When, after Mr. Buffett had passed away, it was a few weeks later, and I was listening on Spotify to your version of the song Wings. And it was the first time that I had this kind of feeling of emotions taking over. That's such a beautiful song. And
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any closing words as we part for now?
I would say the people who are mourning the loss of Jimmy, that let's celebrate that he was here at all, and that we got to laugh and dance and sing along, and let's keep it going. Let's keep the party going. Let's have joy and gratitude and be interested in life, and let's find the next possibility for an excuse to get together with people and experience joy through stories and songs and food and culture, and celebrate our differences, and for a change, and create a little peace and love through happiness and music and food and stories. So yeah, and I think that this new Buffett record is an example of a life lived seeking that out, very successfully so, but nevertheless, there it is. So yeah, let's get together and feel all right, like Bob Marley would say.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Will. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Take care of yourself.
And you as well.
Thank you,
Until
brother.
next time. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.